Star Wars, one of the biggest franchises in the history of cinema, but despite that I do have a subtle personal hatred for the original trilogy. Not because I think it's bad, it's just the fact that my real name is Luke. There are only so many times a person can say use the force before I mentally snap and try to strangle them. Well, they did ask me to do it, just not in the way they were expecting me to. And it didn't help the fact that I grew up at the same time the Star Wars prequels were being released. The films do start off well with the classic theme and text scroll, but that's where the quality kind of drops off. Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation to trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute. Wait a minute, that's how we're starting our epic trilogy? With the politics of a trade embargo? It has been literally 55 seconds, and you've already fucked it up. But don't worry, the Viceroy states that the blockade is perfectly legal, and you know what? I'm not a fan of the phrase perfectly legal. Sticking a firework up my ass is perfectly legal. I don't think I'm going to be using that as my go-to excuse. So the leader of the Galactic Republic sends 2 Jedi Knights, Obi-Wan Kenobi and his master Qui-Gon Jinn, to sort out negotiations between the Trade Federation blockade, but find out that they were actually planning to attack the planet of Naboo. However, the Queen of Naboo expects the invasion and oh my god! That's the Queen of Naboo? I mean, I know royalty can dress a little extravagantly, but that? How do I even describe her appearance without using the phrase what the fuck even? Come on, can we please have something a little more sensible looking? Except that! Okay, so the 2 Jedi Knight reach the planet of Naboo and do run into Jar Jar Binks. Remember that child you once met who was a bit weird and kept making bad jokes, but they were a child, so it was kind of cute? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that guy was actually George Lucas, and this is his self-insert fantasy. So Jar Jar helps the Jedi to the underwater city of the Gungans where they can find hope for the Queen, but unfortunately, the Gungans look like the end result of all the American presidential candidates having trained sex with a trout, so the mainland Naboo don't like them too much and mutually refuse to help. They do, however, offer Qui-Gon a vehicle to reach the Naboo Queen so they can escort her to safety, and oh great, now she looks like a goth feather duster. Hang on a minute, she's dressed in black right now as she's being taken prisoner from the Viceroy, but less than a minute ago when the Viceroy landed in front of her palace, she was wearing the red dress from before. She does realise her life is at stake, right? So the Jedi and, arguably, Jar Jar rescue the Queen, but reluctant to leave, they try to take her to refuge on Coruscant. However, due to damage on their ship, they have to land prematurely on Tatooine, and this is where we meet the young Anakin Skywalker. Anakin has the power to use the Force, although he doesn't totally know it yet. Qui-Gon requests training for the young Anakin, but the Jedi Council refuse due to him being too old and too afraid. So you took a 9-year-old kid away from his home and only parent and then present him with a test to see if he's magic, then also expect him to be completely calm in the situation. He's having a discussion with a 600-year-old hairy ballsack. The situation is far beyond normal. By the way, how did Yoda get away with that voice for so long? He's a political ambassador. Learn the bloody language. So after this happens, Queen Amidala requests to go back to Naboo while, what the heck is this? It looks like her hair is being choked with fishnet stockings. Okay, let's get this out the way. How many costume changes does Amidala actually go through in this film? 8! 8 different costume changes while there's a fucking war happening! Oh no, I can't go with you, my people are dying, who will protect them? Oh wait, do you have some Maybelline on your ship? Fuck this planet, I'm getting a blow dry. Maybe she's born with it. Maybe she's fucking retarded! So back on Naboo, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan have a run-in with the film's main nemesis Darth Maul, and I know people say this character is way too over-designed and has literally 2 lines in the whole film, but to be perfectly honest, this is the prequel trilogy of Star Wars. Considering the writing ability of the people behind this, I am perfectly fine with them making the script as short as possible. Qui-Gon dies at the hands of Darth Maul, which leaves Obi-Wan alone, and following his dying master's wish, decides to train the young Anakin. Which brings us nicely into episode 2. While I would say this part of the trilogy fixed a lot of things like giving us more Obi-Wan and downplaying Jar Jar, it does however bring up some new problems. But at the very least, their comedy timing has greatly improved.
I guess I was wrong. There was no danger at all.
So Queen Amidala, now called Padme, is targeted for assassination, and since Obi-Wan and Anakin are back from a decade of training at the same time, they're assigned to protect her. Hang on, so Anakin in episode 1 was about 9 years old, and 10 years have passed, so he's 19 now, which means... Oh fuck, he's a rebellious teenager!
My goodness, you've grown.
So have you. Grown more beautiful, I mean. Well, for a senator, I mean.
And he's horrible with women! Anakin is sad that Padme doesn't recognise him, even though right at the start of the scene they establish perfectly well that she does recognise him. Of course, Jar Jar butts in and tries to comfort Anakin, saying it's the happiest she's been in a long, long time. Hang on, if this scene was supposed to display her being happy, she must have been full-on suicidal! Why was Jar Jar in her home? After another attempted assassination, Obi-Wan goes to find answers while Anakin is assigned to keep an eye on Padme as she seeks refuge on Naboo. Of course, this means she needs to take a leave of absence, so who does she pass the responsibility to? Jar Jar Binks, of course! Do you mind if we just take the time to look at all of his qualifications to this role? Yeah. Sadly, he's still more reliable than most politicians. So Obi-Wan goes and does very little to the plot because all they really wanted to do was get him out of the way so Anakin and Padme can have a love story. And this is the biggest reason I cannot stand these movies. This quote-unquote romantic dialogue feels like it was written by someone who had never touched a boob. Well, at least they know their target demographic. The acting that goes on between these two characters is beyond shit. Anakin can't convey a single emotion out of his mouth and Padme can only mimic him. How am I supposed to care for the love story if the people involved can't even care about it?
If you're suffering as much as I am, please tell me.
Yes, I'm suffering, dear God. You do not understand how much I am suffering. Honestly, there isn't a lot more to say about this film. The movie is so focused on the... for lack of a better phrase, love story between Anakin and Padme. The film ends with the two getting married, which falls us neatly into episode 3. The Chancellor has been captured by Count Dooku and it's up to Obi-Wan and Anakin to save him. Count Dooku was in episode 2, but he didn't exactly do a whole lot. The film was so far up its own ass thinking Romeo and Juliet was a brand of pasta sauce that they didn't really bother to focus on him. Which is a shame, because... Count Dooku was played by an actor.
This is where the fun begins.
What, you mean now you're trying? So the Jedi meet up with Dooku, who likes to remind us that the fight scenes in these movies are more flips than a schizophrenic acrobat before Anakin beheads him to rescue the Chancellor. This then leads us into General Grievous, who, just like episode 2, is merely a distraction for Obi-Wan. Seriously though, is his only job in these films to fight over-designed side characters? If that's the case, does he mind paying a visit to Queen Amidala and teaching her what the meaning of a threat is? Upon returning to Coruscant, Anakin hears the news that Padme is pregnant. While happy about it, it is also illegal to the Jedi Council as they'll throw him out for such deeds. And can I just say that this is a stupid rule? Wouldn't you want your Jedi to breed and create super strong Force children? I mean, the Force is passed through the blood genetics with midichlorian- Oh god, what the fuck was that? And speaking of horrible torture, Anakin keeps having visions of Padme dying in childbirth. He consults Yoda, who says he must learn to cope with death, but fair to say, with Anakin's charm and charisma, he's not going to find another date anytime soon and consults with the Chancellor Palpatine. The Chancellor uses this weakness in Anakin to request his presence at an opera. He then tells the tale of Darth Plagueis, a Sith who has the unnatural power to manipulate the Force so he could create life and save people from death. I say unnatural power because that's how the film puts it, but I think that statement is a little redundant considering we're moving objects through thin air and changing people's thoughts with a flick of the wrist. Anakin, thinking he can use this power to save Padme, joins the Chancellor, who reveals himself as the Emperor Darth Sidious. This is while Obi-Wan is fighting Grievous and is oblivious to the fact. Now with Darth Sidious and the newly appointed Darth Vader, the Emperor issues Order 66, which commands all clones to kill every Jedi Knight, with the only survivors being Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda. Weird, cause I thought the Force gave you foresight on these kind of things. Anakin helps Order 66 by murdering the younglings and the Viceroy's men, and I know they're trying to go for Anakin turning evil and making him more hateable, but his character up at this point made me hate him enough already. The two surviving Jedi discover that the whole plan had Anakin's involvement, so Obi-Wan goes to confront him on the lava planet of Mustafar. He tells Padme what has transpired, but not believing it, goes to the planet on her own with Obi-Wan sneaking on board. Padme is disgusted with Anakin's actions, but for allowing Obi-Wan to join them, Vader chokes her, leaving him and Obi-Wan to discuss events. I say discuss? Anakin just talks political mumbo-jumbo.
Don't lecture me, Obi-Wan. I see through the lies of the Jedi.
I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire.
I'm sorry, could you just say that again?
I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security. I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire.
The prequels gracefully end with Obi-Wan winning the fight against Vader, he burns away in agony, and Padme with yet another perfectly timed joke ask if he's okay. And that's the Star Wars prequels, and while yes, it is funny to dwell on someone's shortcomings rather than their success, like acting so wooden it could occupy the entire Amish community, writing which I imagine was done with mac and cheese Creole and spitting in the face of the original so much I could contract swine flu just from watching them, there are some good moments. Ewan McGregor, the soundtrack, fighting Darth Maul, the mere design of General Grievous, and all this was the build-up to the original trilogy, the discovery of the Force, the emotional characters, the creepy villains, the destruction of the Death Star, and to think that entire story was enabled because of a fucking tax dispute!